What if I told you that one superhero movie didn't just change the way we see Batman, but changed Hollywood, Oscar rules, and even how we think about villains? Let's talk about The Dark Knight, the most culturally impactful movie from 2000 to 2010. Starting off, before The Dark Knight, superhero movies were fun, colorful, quirky, and other things. Then Christopher Nolan came along and said, what if we made Batman real? And suddenly Gotham wasn't a fantasy, it looked like Chicago. The bad guys weren't aliens, they were terrorists. And Batman, he was broken, conflicted, and just a human, just like all of us. This wasn't just a comic book movie. It was a crime thriller, a philosophical debate, a psychological conflict/war. The Dark Knight blurred the line between genres and proved that superhero films could be art, and Hollywood did notice. When looking at The Dark Knight, one of the most crucial aspects is the villain. Heath Ledger's Joker wasn't just a villain, he became a cultural icon. He wasn't after money or power, he wanted chaos. He was terrifying because he felt real. Ledger's performance didn't just win an Oscar, it redefined how we see villains in other movies as well. He inspired a decade of morally complex antagonists, from Breaking Bad's Walter White to The Last of Us Joel. The Joker even slipped beyond the screen, appearing in political protest, street art, and internet culture. His chaotic philosophy, why so serious, being an iconic quote, became a meme and a mindset and even a warning to society. First, let's look at some of the impacts on the industry. Well, here's a wild fact. The Dark Knight didn't get nominated for Best Picture. Fans and critics were furious. The backlash was so loud that the Academy changed the rules. Starting in 2009, the Oscars expanded their Best Picture category from 5 to 10 nominees just to make space for films like The Dark Knight that would come after. One movie reshaped the biggest award show in the world. That's not just a critical acclaim, that's a system-level impact. After The Dark Knight, studios realized audiences wanted more than CGI battles. DC tried to make a darker universe. Greedy reboots then became a trend. We don't get Joker in 2019, Logan, or even the Batman without The Dark Knight laying the groundwork. And it's not just superheroes. It taught filmmakers that genre movies could be smart, stylish, and still make $1 billion. Now, it is important to consider the effect that The Dark Knight had on society, which also is a reason for its grand success. The Dark Knight wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural shift. It was a mirror to society and to the individual, and as it turned out, it also served as a wake-up call to Hollywood to produce more movies just like this. 15 years later, a lot of movies are still chasing its shadow. The reason that is because The Dark Knight portrays some very key characters that the audience can relate with on a very deep personal level. For example, the protagonist, Batman. Batman is an individual that on the outside seems as a privileged child, a billionaire, and a playboy, but in reality he's a broken character. He's a person that has deep personal suffering dating all the way back to his childhood, and he uses that suffering to do good to people, but he has to first fight his own malevolence. This is something that a lot of people look for when they read a novel or when they watch a movie or a TV series. They look for something to relate to, something to encourage them, something to inspire them. And the creators of Batman did so through their characters. On the other hand, the quite opposite of Batman is the Joker. The Joker is an individual that suffered. If the background of the Joker was known at the time of the movie, which it was through the comics, we know that Joker was a failed comedian, he suffered a lot, he was poor, etc. And he used that suffering to do bad on the world. So it's kind of a representation of yin and yang. So once one of them, he suffers, he turns around and he does good in the world by fighting his own malevolence, that being Batman, the Dark Knight in this case. And Joker, on the other side, is an individual that suffered and portrayed his suffering in the world through chaos. And many people relate to both of these characters because there's elements of both of these characters in every single person. Considering the period of the 2000s, it was a very progressive period in history. A lot of things were changing, new technologies were being implemented to their full extent, and due to that, people were really analyzing themselves, really trying to find themselves. Social media was taking off, and the idea of image and self-perception was definitely a big factor of the period. This movie directly targeted that. It directly targeted the individual in the mirror of society, which was why it became such a big success, and which is why it affected Hollywood to that extent. Of course, acting and the great actors that played in it and the great story had to do something with it, but it was the message that the writers were able to send through the characters that transformed the movie industry and that caused such a big impact on society, making this movie one of the most influential cultural pieces of the 2000s.